What's up, everybody? Today I am reviewing R.L. Stine's Goosebumps triple header books. These are a couple of short story collections, each have 3 stories in them, and they're about 40 to 50 pages each in length. So, this is my first time reading these books as an adult. And first off, these books have really cool covers. I'll show you the first one here. I don't know how well it's going to show up on camera, but these are like holographic covers where the image changes depending on what angle you're looking at the book and like the lighting and stuff. So yeah, really cool. Again, I don't know how well this is showing up on camera, but I'm hoping you guys can kind of see this cover and how the image changes. So yeah, really cool. And then the second book also has one, a smaller one at the top there. Depending what angle you're looking at the image, it either shows the 3-headed monster or a picture of R.L. Stine. I really like it. And this is actually a first edition. Further printings of this book would exclude this little holographic image at the top, and it would just be a regular picture like what's down here. So yeah, I actually sought out a first edition of this book so I could have that little holographic picture up there. So yeah, pretty cool. I really like these holographic covers. I think they're neat. But on to the books. So triple header book 1. These were both published in the late 90s, around the tail end of the original Goosebumps series. And they're okay. I didn't really love them or anything. They're not amazing, but they were enjoyable, quick reads. Like I said, there's only 3 stories each in these trilogy of terrors. And in the first book, we start off... Oh, I almost forgot to mention too. Each book and each individual story is introduced by this 3-headed monster named Lefty, Slim, and Righty. Or I guess I'm going backwards, I guess. Well, anyway. Yeah, so it's introduced by this 3-headed monster. And they kind of have some like witty and sarcastic dialogue as they open up the story. And yeah, it's just meant to be funny. And some of it is. Some of it's kind of cheesy. That's typical of R.L. Stine's sense of humor. But yeah, it's just kind of a neat little feature that these books have. I kind of like that. I like the format and the setup of these books. It's just kind of charming. But on to the first story of this book. It opens up with a story called Ghost Granny, where this really mean and annoying old lady lives with this family. And she's not really their grandmother. She's actually a friend of their grandmother. And she doesn't have anywhere else to go, anywhere else to live. So she takes up residency with this family. And she's just really mean to them and insulting them and like drinking milk straight out of the carton and pinching them and just being really weird and annoying. And the family does not like her at all, but they don't have the heart to kick her out. So she ends up dying. Yes, a character dies in a Goosebumps story. It happens occasionally. Not very often, but it does. And the family is delighted that she's dead. They're glad she's gone, which is kind of dark and messed up a little bit, but I kind of liked it for that reason. And then she comes back to haunt them as a ghost. And I'm not going to get into it too much more. It's kind of hard to talk about these stories without spoiling anything. Again, they're only about 40 to 50 pages long each. And it was okay. I give this story a 3 out of 5 stars. There's kind of a moral injected into the story somewhere about you probably shouldn't be kicking out a family member just because they're annoying or whatever. I don't know, but yeah, that was the first story, Ghost Granny, excuse me. And the second story, Spin the Wheel of Horror. This is probably my favorite of this collection, and this story is very reminiscent of One Day at Horrorland from the original Goosebumps series, which is probably why. It's basically about this family that goes to this live TV game show where they spin the Wheel of Horror, and on the wheel is the names of a bunch of different haunted attractions that they might have to go through. And the object of the game is to go as long as they possibly can without screaming. And if they can go through the haunted attraction without screaming, then they'll win like $100,000 or whatever the prize is. But it turns out that a lot of the scares and props and everything seem to be a little bit too real. Is this really just a haunted attraction, or is it something more sinister going on? So yeah. This story is pretty much like a shortened down version of One Day at Horrorland. And the way it ends is just so predictable and cliche. If you've read any amount of Goosebumps books before, you'll predict how the story ends. But I really enjoyed this one. I had a good time with it. I like seeing R.L. Stine's imagination really come to life with like these game show types of stories and with all these different haunted attractions. And yeah, I feel like his imagination just really comes to life in this type of like setting and story. So I really like this one, even though, like I said, it was cliche and I saw what was coming. It was just still a fun story watching the family go through the haunted house and experience all of these crazy different scenes and everything. So yeah, Spin the Wheel of Horror. I give that one like a 3.5 out of 5 stars, I think. So even though I liked it and it was my favorite of the collection, perhaps not by a ton. The last story, Teenage Sponge Boys from Outer Space. I will say that this one has the best title of this book, of the stories in this book. This one I enjoyed about the same as Ghost Granny. I give it 3 out of 5 stars. A couple of kids discover that their classmates are aliens. And not only are there aliens, they're aliens made of sponge. And the aliens basically force them into helping them fix their spacecraft so they can get back home. But the only problem is they plan on taking the kids with them. Will they remain here on Earth, or will they become slaves and prisoners to the teenage sponge boys from outer space? So yeah, this one, again, all these stories in here are just kind of cheesy fun, along the same lines of a lot of Goosebumps stories. I feel like the stories in here might even be geared a little bit more towards a younger audience than a traditional full-length Goosebumps story. With the exception of maybe Ghost Granny, that whole death thing was a little bit edgier. But yeah, Teenage Sponge Boys was okay. I give that one a 3 out of 5 stars. Like I said, it was nothing great, but I enjoyed it for what it was. And yeah, that's pretty much my overall feelings for this entire collection. I liked it, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend it except to my fellow Goosebumps fans who are trying to read, just about everything by Stine. So that's Triple Header Book 1. Honestly, I think the best parts about these books, maybe not the best, but the most appealing part of these books is the commentary that we get from the three-headed monster known as Lefty, Slim, and Righty, as these three heads kind of joke around and insult and throw sarcastic remarks at one another. It's very cheesy, but just kind of entertaining. So in book 2, the story, I gotta actually check the stories because I forget which stories are in here. Okay, the first story is Ghoul School. And it's basically about this kid that gets sent to school where all of the students are monsters. And the monsters start to catch on that the main character is not a monster, and if he doesn't prove to them that he's a monster as well, they plan to eat him. So there's some suspense built up around this idea that he has to figure out a way to trick them into thinking that he's a monster. Otherwise, he's going to be monster lunch. So this story was all right. Again, probably another like 3 out of 5 for me. And this story is very reminiscent of Creature Teacher and Why I Quit Zombie School. Pretty much the same thing, just a very brief, shortened down version with a slightly different like twist at the end than I was expecting, actually. I predicted the end to go one way and it actually did something else. So kind of kudos for catching me off guard a little bit. But it still wasn't a great story. It was just okay. The next story, The Revenge, that was probably my favorite one of this collection. And this is a story that, again, just takes an old recycled idea and a bunch of elements from previous Goosebumps books, this time borrowing from Be Careful What You Wish For and Revenge Are Us from earlier in the franchise. And this story is basically about another kid that wants to get revenge on the school bully that's just really mean to her. And in the very beginning, he almost kills her dog. And not directly kills her, but like he throws her ball out into the road or past the road or something, and the dog goes running out and almost gets hit by a car, which is kind of dark. And thankfully, the dog doesn't end up dying. But yeah, she wants to get revenge on the school bully because he's just a really mean guy. And to do this, she goes to see this fortune teller with these mystical powers, where she grants her the ability to fly out of her body. I believe it's called astral projection. And as like this spirit floating around, she's able to scare and do all these really mean things to the bully. But of course, with powers come responsibilities and great consequences. Things don't always go as planned. So, The Revenge was a good little story. I like this one. And yeah, I don't really have much else to say about it. This one was probably like a 3.5 out of 5 stars. I enjoyed The Revenge. And then the last story, The Mummy with My Face. This was probably my least favorite story of the collection, and probably out of both books. And this one is basically just about a couple of kids that go to ancient Egypt on a tour trip, and they stumble across this stranger who leads them through a pyramid. And why they decide to follow this guy, I don't know. I have no idea why you would just follow some stranger you've never met before into some dark, creepy, unknown pyramid. That makes no sense to me, but okay. And from there, we have the very typical mummies come to life and chase the kids plot, with a little bit of a twist ending that really kind of saved the story, in my opinion, because apart from that twist ending, the story was very, very dull, very simple and straightforward. Mummy comes to life and chases victims type of thing. There really wasn't much going on with it. I ended up giving this story a 2 out of 5 stars. It wasn't terrible, but it wasn't very good either. So yeah, I think I enjoyed book 1 slightly more, but not a lot more. Both these books are both like around the 3 out of 5 star range for me. And again, I did enjoy these. They're good books, but they're really nothing all that special. And unless you're a big Goosebumps fan like myself, I think you can skip these books and you're really not missing out on much. Again, I think the most entertaining part is just the commentary between the three-headed monster as they introduce each story. So yeah, these are Goosebumps triple header books. Have you read these? What are your thoughts on them? Let me know down in the comments. I'd love to hear what your favorite stories are from these books and your least favorite stories. Anyways, guys, that is all I have for today. Next up in the future, I will probably review and rank the Tales to Give You Goosebumps series, which, from what I remember, I actually think I like those better than the triple header books, even though those stories are even shorter than the triple header books, so like only 10 pages long each. So, yeah, sometime in the future, I'll be doing those. And that's pretty much all I have for today, guys. So thanks for watching, and as always, have an awesome day.